Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
Right, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, the 25th of September, nearly rounding out the year, if you think about it. Very blessed and highly favored to be here with you today. It's around what, 24 degrees Celsius outside?
24 degrees,
Just 1 degree short
it's quite
of
hot.
coinciding with today's date, which is the 25th. My name is Fiso Ngumalo. Really happy to be with you today.
Yeah, good afternoon and welcome to Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for tuning in to watch us on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. We are on DSTV as well, DSTV channel 286. A very good afternoon and welcome. My name is Lungelele Makakula.
Yeah, a very interesting show we have for you today. But I think the one that I want to tell you about is, while we see the world still grappling with the aftershocks of global events, Eswatini's tourism sector has risen to new heights. I'm sure you saw the remarkable results that were published yesterday. 12.9% surge in international visitor arrivals this August marks a significant step forward. It doesn't only showcase Eswatini's resilience, but also our undeniable allure. Why am I saying that? Our Luju Food and Lifestyle Festival, the breathtaking Umhlanga Reed Dance, these cultural pillars have attracted once again visitors from across the globe. If you remember, last year there was a surge, but this year 12.9 more than last year. Very remarkable. But beyond the headlines, let me say beyond the headlines as well as the figures, there's a deeper strategy, one that is aimed at transforming Eswatini from a fleeting stopover into a sought-after destination, which is what it is today. Today, we want to be joined by the Chief Executive Officer of Eswatini Tourism, Vusi Dlamini, Norman, who is going to help us unpack these staggering numbers as well as reveal what lies ahead for the kingdom's thriving tourism sector. All of that should be right after the 30-minute mark of today's show. Stay tuned. But I do want to disclaim that if we are unable to get Vusi Dlamini today, we are still going to be able to discuss the very same developments. Sanales Bia, our economist, always on standby for such developments. And he should be on standby for that.
That's right. Good afternoon once again. Today on the Nedbank segment, Tulani Mgomezulu, Digital Banking Manager at Nedbank Eswatini, will join us to talk about the Common Monetary Area EFT changes. We'll expand to the difference to payments, how the changes affect local banks, and how this change will affect the way clients receive funds from CMA countries to Eswatini. And for our leading story today, over the next 12 months, the country is expected to complete 5 solar PV plants and other renewable energy projects, which will ensure that Eswatini is energy sustainable. We'll find out more from the head of corporation at the German embassy in South Africa, Fabian Krelis. And for our last segment, Sandiswa Dlamini from Nedbank will join us for today's financial markets. For now, let's go to our first story.
Right, as mentioned, our business news segment, we want to make sure that we lay the ground as we take a look at our landscape, our business landscape today. Very interesting developments, as we said when we started the show. So let's just get right straight into it, Lou.
Yeah, and for our first story, over the next 12 months, the country is expected to complete 5 solar plants and other renewable energy projects, which will ensure that Eswatini's energy is sustainable. The head of corporation at the German embassy in South Africa, Fabian Krelis, said this during 3rd Europe Union Green Power Transformation Forum, where he declared that Germany stands ready to support the country achieve the goal that 80% of its energy should come from renewable energy by 2050.
Germany remains committed to helping Eswatini in achieving a sustainable energy transition, concurrently advancing universal energy access and economic development. More immediate progress looms ahead. We look forward to seeing Eswatini improve their energy security with the construction of 5 solar PV plants, 1 biomass plant, 1 new hydro plant, and the upgrade of 2 hydro plants more over the next 12 months. The instrument Get Transform provides technical assistance to the private sector, partnerships with the already mentioned Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy, the Eswatini Energy Regulatory Authority, and the Eswatini Electricity Company have enabled Get Transform to make an impact on both a policy and a technical level. Through a series of Get Transform trainings, Eswatini has strengthened regulatory capacity across critical topics like grid codes and distributed generation. Further, power procurement capacity will be built through Get Transform's policy catalyst window on renewable energy tendering, which started only this month. The instrument also supported the country's journey towards bankable frameworks, sorry for the sound, a prerequisite to robust and conducive investment conditions. Among the sector documents reviewed, updated or developed are Electricity Acts, a short-term generation expansion plan, and the grid, and the also mentioned grid code. In parallel, Get Invest instruments is crucial for mobilizing investments in renewable energy in the country. This might be especially interesting for the businesses around here.
The country's public external debt fell by 3.6% at the end of last month when compared to July this year. This is according to the latest recent economic developments report by the Central Bank of Eswatini.
Central Bank says at the end of last month, public external debt stood at 15.9 billion emalangeni, translating to 17.1% of the GDP. On a month-on-month basis, external debt fell by 3.6% when compared to 16.5 billion emalangeni recorded in July this year. The bank says the month-on-month decrease was due to a reduction in debt service payments coupled with a slight recovery of the lilangeni against major foreign currencies in which the country's liabilities are dominated. The central bank says domestic debt stood at 18.4 billion emalangeni at the end of last month, an equivalent of 19.8% of the GDP. This shows an increase of 10.2% when compared to the 16.7 billion emalangeni recorded at the end of July this year. According to the central bank, the rise in public domestic debt was driven by an additional Central Bank of Eswatini advance to government amounting to 1 billion emalangeni last month, as well as issuance of bonds via private placements amounting to 650 million emalangeni. While commercial banks continued to dominate participation in government securities on the shorter end of the yield curve, non-bank financial institutions continued to dominate on the longer-term securities. The central bank says the total public debt stood at 34.3 billion emalangeni at the end of last month, an equivalent of 37% of the GDP. The central bank says this represents an increase of 3.3% from the 33.2 billion emalangeni in July. The rise in total public debt was accounted for by growth in domestic debt during last month. For Nedbank Business Watch, Nelswen Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Babane.
It's 8 minutes after 2, and that's it for our business news. Thank you for staying with us. This is Nedbank Business Watch.
Yeah, we return after the ad break with a sit-down interview by our capable in-house journalist, Nelswen Dlangamandla. She sits down with Gordon Bennett. They talk about resilience in entrepreneurship. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Enterprise Watch. Gordon Bennett started his entrepreneurship journey at 35 years old. Now at 41 years, Bennett's business has grown, giving him multiple streams of income, hiring over 35 Eswatini. He sits down with business journalist Nelson Langamandla to share advice on to how entrepreneurs can grow and be resilient as they build their sustainable businesses.
Mr. Bennett, welcome to the show. From what I gathered, you retired at 35 years old and you had a booming career. You were working in the banking sector. You even worked internationally. Would you say to a young person that getting into entrepreneurship can yield good results? Would you say they can take that chance?
Anything that you dream of is possible under the sun. They say luck favors the prepared. Be willing to fail, because failure is part of progress. What I see and observe is, especially in our generation, the generation coming after us, it's they take failure and get discouraged. The 1% that we see out there who are very successful is people that have actually embraced failure, and they've failed more times than what we see in terms of their success story. So I borrow from that, and I still fail, and I know I'll still fail. I've failed in a lot of things that I'm doing. So it's just to encourage young people, once you start believing in determining your path, never get discouraged. You just have to close your eyes and start believing in yourself, and that's what all it takes. You have to believe in yourself. You have to love yourself, and everything else just falls in because you are centered. And that's the DNA of entrepreneurs. They are very self-centered. Nothing else matters to them except for themselves and their path or the journey they've chosen to go through.
We have been speaking to young people from the beginning of the show, and they have one major concern: access to finance. What is your advice regarding that? How can they start and sustain their businesses, because they say we do not have the money?
Finance is part and parcel of business. It's not everything to a business. The most important aspect of a business is the idea itself. I'll make an example whereby you find a car parked on the roadside. It's a very rainy day. But the person inside that car needs assistance. But he or she is sitting inside the car too. What do? You just pass by and continue your life. But should you find the same person outside trying to attend to what's causing the car to stop, you're also touched. You also feel impelled to try and assist, especially looking at the conditions of. So that's how we should structure our lives. If you don't go out there and start doing things, no one will even know your story. So funding will always be attracted to great ideas. It's not about the other way around where you find people who want to do a startup with a business loan. It doesn't work like that. A startup is not about ideas, it's about the amount of time you put into it. And once someone comes and recognizes the amount of time you put into it and the amount of flesh you've added into the structure, that's when things start moving. And that's where you also attract not just debt funding, but also you get hands from various people who can contribute in different forms, not just capital, but they can also contribute in different forms. Sometimes people will just give you credit because they really like your work ethic, they really like how you've structured yourself and how you've positioned yourself. So in our environment, it's the other way around. So young people always think they need money to do business. You need an idea, and then the idea attracts the help that you need.
I like the fact that you are speaking about innovation. You are saying innovation will attract funding. What is your advice to young people in terms of the sectors now that they should invest in?
We're in an environment where we are seeing a lot of heading mentality. We see a spaza shop mushrooming next door. We also want to do a spaza shop. And it's an indication that people don't spend time doing their due diligence of where they want to play or what they want to do. It's entrepreneurship in our environment, as most young people have realized, they just take it as, I want to do something that I've seen. I think it has worked for someone, I also want to do it. And we haven't really seen much of your 0 to 1 initiatives where someone just comes with something from scratch and he molds it into something without looking left or right, getting inspiration from someone that has done it. So we need to start entrenching that or imparting that knowledge to youngsters, that we need to think outside the box. Identify the needs in your environment, and then you start crystallizing a business idea out of the needs you've identified in your society. And once you start believing in that story, and then that's when how a business is born.
Small and medium enterprises, Mr. Bennett, always struggle with paying taxes. In your business, you do tracking, you do distribution, amongst other things. How do you ensure that you pay taxes? Because siyati ukuthi emabhizinisi labhadala kahle i-tax, ukhanza ukuthi sekayakhona nekuthi angene phela a-contractwe kule msebenzi lemikhulu le yendiwa nguhulumende, kanjalo ichubeke ingene imali ithuthuke nebhizinisi.
With the current landscape in our country, tax will always be an issue because it's an issue of an egg and chicken. Who comes first? The biggest challenge is non-payment from services that have been rendered by SMEs. For the taxman to collect, there must be an income. So you find SMEs caught in that unfortunate situation whereby as much as you've done business, you've invoiced, but what you've actually worked for does not reflect what's coming in. And yet the taxman has realized that you've been on the road, and you've been working, and what's due to them is actually due to them. But the law does not accommodate the fact that our environment is not a 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day settlement. And I know of businesses that go for 2 years without being paid. But once you have invoiced, rendered a service, the taxman is expecting that you must offer what's due to them. And if you don't give them what's due to them, then they start imposing penalties and interest. And that's what makes it not viable to even consider going into business in such a landscape.
You were part of the leadership forum, Mr. Bennett. I saw that ENYC was a partner there. I want you to speak to a young person who wants to venture into business, who wants to venture into entrepreneurship. What can you say to them in terms of being resilient so that their businesses can be sustainable?
I'll first say, I hear people always talk about time. You need time to do things. With me and my understanding and also education and training, it's not about time. It's all about focus. Once you narrow your vision, you narrow your focus, and the success rate increases. They say if you want to increase your successes, you must double your failures. So on the other side of failure, definitely success. So don't get discouraged because of failure. And we see a lot of it now, where when people fail, they then go for either the divine intervention. Someone will go to a prophet, Someone will go to traditional healer, someone will go to church and seek intervention on that. Well, that's a belief system which we cannot do without in our society. But if you look at people that have really gone through and made it in life, they were able to overcome failure. And to them, on the other side of failure, there's progress. It means the price of progress is pain. Once you get accustomed to pain, you will deal with anything in life. Whether it's a failed relationship, it's a failed business, it doesn't stop you from starting all over again. If you want to touch the rainbow, you must put up with the rain. You just have to go through the pain.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Mr. Bennett, for joining us on the show. We are optimistic that the conversation that we've had today will help young people and entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas and bring new products to the market.
Very, very poetic nuggets there by the resilient Gordon Bennett. He has since started a very thriving business, and you can tell from his insights now. He doesn't just make them even in plain language. Some of it you have to decode it, and you might even want to have a high IQ to be able to really understand that. Very insightful interview there by Nelson Ndlangamandla, our business journalist, with Gordon Bennett. Lulu sits down with Tulani from Nedbank. They talk about everything you need to know about the CMA and EFT changes. Don't go anywhere.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're discussing the Common Monetary Area with Digital Banking Manager at Nedbank Eswatini, Tulani Mgomezulu. Mgomezulu, a very good afternoon, and thank you for coming through to Nedbank Business Watch. So let's talk about the Common Monetary Area. Which countries form part of the CMA?
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to your viewers. When we talk about CMA, we are talking about a common monetary area, where it has countries such as Namibia, Lesotho, Eswatini, as well as South Africa.
So what is the difference? We have international payments, we have local payments to local banks and international banks. What is the difference between the two using the CMA?
Okay, the difference between the two is that CMA payments only processes to 3 countries, which is South Africa, Lesotho, and Namibia, because they are sharing 1:1 when compared to the rand. And then we have international payments as well, which speaks to other currencies, such as the dollar as well as euros, which can be processed with any other international country.
Okay, so does this in any way affect, the banks?
It definitely does. This change has actually affected the industry, which entails financial institutions, where what we were using before, which is BankServe, has been discontinued, and we are now using SADC RTGS to process SA cross-border payments as well as international payments.
So how then will payments be made if EFT for the Common Monetary Area has been discontinued?
So what this entails is that from our channels, you'll now be able to process these payments using SADC RTGS, which speaks to your Money app, Money web, and corporate online banking. You'll be able to capture cross-border payments to SA, and you'll be able to then also process your international payments to other countries.
So will there be a fee? You're a bank, obviously there are charges. So does it come with charges as well?
No, definitely, Lulu. It does come with a charge.
Okay.
So we have a minimum a rate of 22 emalangeni.
Per transaction?
Yes, going up to a maximum of 50 emalangeni. So we are saying that you'll be able to process your low value as well as high value transactions within our internet banking platforms.
Okay. So does the number of times you make transactions matter to you as a bank? How many times can you transact? How many times can you make a transaction a day?
So with us at Nedbank, it's unlimited, Lulu. You are able to process transactions using batches. You are able to process transactions using single payments. So it's up to the client and, of course, the recipients whom they want to pay.
Yeah, there are a lot of scammers these days, Tulani, and as a bank, I will assume that you do keep track of fraudulent activities. Do you do that, now and again with your clients?
No, definitely. All our transactions processed through our banking platforms go through a screening process, of which that is then included, the checks are included, and if there are any issues, the bank then intervenes where there's a red flag.
Okay, so how then do I make payments using their money app, of course, from start to finish? Just take us through the whole process.
Okay, so on the Money app as well as Money web, what you would do is you log in, and you would then go on to transact. You will then select that particular payment or beneficiary that you'd like to complete the payment with. You'd input your details such as the amount, and then you'll be able to then fully process that transaction.
Okay, so is that the only option, or I can make a physical transaction and just walk in through the bank and make that particular transaction?
Yes, we encourage our customers to use our internet banking platforms because we have the Money app, we have the Money web, which you can use on your computer. All you need to do is just input the URL. We also have business banking, which also entails the same features. So one would then be able to conclude all these payments at the comfort of their own home.
Okay, so I know that online banking apps do send you proof of payment. So am I able to download it? Do I also receive it via SMS or email? What options do I have?
So basically, once you conclude the payment and it's completed successfully, it does then send you an email of that particular proof of payment. Should you then wish to resend that particular proof of payment, you do have that options within our channels. You also have the option to view that particular proof of payment onto channels, just in case you just want to see that everything is in place.
Yeah, because I will have a list of beneficiaries that I send money to. How do I manage them? Does the list, stay safe in my banking app? How do I manage my beneficiary list?
Thank you, Lulu. So on the Money app, what you do is you log in, and then you'll tap on More, and then you'll go on to Recipients. You'll be able to then add your beneficiary there. You'd be able to then also save it. And then on Money web, what you'll do is you'll go onto Recipients tab, and then you would go onto International Payments, and then you'll have your South African beneficiaries showing there. You'll be able to also add a new beneficiary as well as edit existing ones. Once saved, they are ready for you to then complete your payment once you're ready to do that.
Okay, so will these changes of the CMA EFT affect me receiving funds in Eswatini in any way?
Definitely. So incoming payments will now be treated as international payments. So this means that when a payment is coming through from a foreign country, as Nedbank, we will notify you via an email or SMS alerting you that there's an incoming payment. You then have two options. If you were expecting that payment to come through, you can accept that payment. And if you were not aware of that payment, you are able to also then reject that payment.
Yeah. So how long does it take for me to receive payment for to get other CMA bank?
So it is remitted on the same value. So once we send you this notification, you'll be able to then receive it on the very same day.
Yeah, still on beneficiaries. What details do I need for my beneficiaries?
So basically what you need on the beneficiaries, you need your account number, gender. For business entities, though, it's not applicable. Then you'll also need your beneficiary address, which will entail the city as well as the country. You will also be required to input your SWIFT code and also the reason for payment, which is the BOP code.
All right. So lastly, before I let you go, Tulani, your contact details. How do your clients get in contact with you?
Our clients are able to contact us using email. We have helpdesk@nedbank.co.za. They can also call us on 3278 1999. They can also share their feedback on CMA on our socials. They can also tag us by using or searching for Nedbank Eswatini. We're available on Facebook, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you so much. And that's it. That was Tulani Mgomezulu, Digital Banking Manager at Nedbank Eswatini. For more details, do contact them on their social media pages or visit one of their branches countrywide. Let's go for an ad break. We'll be right back.
All right, it's 32 minutes after 2. Thank you for staying with us. This is Nedbank Business Watch. It's a Wednesday. You have been kind to stay with us. We are getting into an interesting segment. Tourism is exploding in Eswatini. Nearly 13% increase in visitors last month. And 86,000 people came to check out everything from food festivals to our alluring cultural event in Umhlanga, our reed dance. And while most of the tourists are coming from our friendly neighbors in South Africa, Mozambique, and even Brazil jumped in with a crazy 96% boost this time around. Meanwhile, in Europe, not so much. It seems they're too busy with the Olympics and baguettes to hop over. But here's the big deal. Eswatini wants to stop being just a pit stop on your Southern African road trip and become the destination. And joining us to help us figure out why everyone is suddenly so obsessed with this tiny kingdom is the Chief Executive Officer of Eswatini Tourism. Let's break it all down. Vusi Norman Dlamini is the Chief Executive. He joins us virtually via a Zoom link. Vusi, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. Is it a coincidence that we have such a whooping increase in our visitors right in time of your office?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngumalo. I would say not necessarily. Ordinarily, the month of August, September would be where you are expecting numbers to actually increase. But what we appreciate is that the number is actually exponentially increased. And yes, it's not necessarily because there's me, but it's because the team on the ground, they do the work that they do to see what we can do to promote the country. And basically, that's that.
Yeah, but let's talk about the surge. It's a remarkable one. August 2024, 12.9% increase. I want to round that up and say it's 13%. International arrivals, we see Brazil hopping in there with a crazy boost as well. What key factors do you believe contributed most to this remarkable surge? You have alluded to the fact that it is a busy month. What is it that is so busy about this month?
I think if you look at it, Mr. Ngumalo, you will remember that the month of August, the month has actually seen quite a number of activities happening in the country in terms of events. This is the month where we were hosting, or we started preparations to host our national events, the Umhlanga event. If you look at it, we also have Luchu in the month of August. You would expect that people will be coming as well to celebrate with us those kind of events. We also are having in this particular month that we are talking about in terms of the statistics. Our international trade fair, yes, the trade fair would not necessarily directly be about. Yes, it's an international trade fair. It attracts mainly people, though, at the moment locally, but we do have a number that will be coming from outside the country. We also appreciate that there were other events, particularly the events for the bikers, which was also very key in terms of bringing numbers into the country. So our appreciation is that there is those particular events, which is why we are saying it would normally be our peak season or our peak time, starting around August, going all the way to November, and that is why we are seeing these types of numbers.
Yeah, South Africa and Mozambique, I see that they accounted for quite the significant share this time around, but we're also seeing remarkable growth from countries like Botswana, Lesotho. What do you attribute this regional demand to, and how is Eswatini positioning itself really to sustain such interest from our neighboring countries?
Like you say, we see South Africa and Mozambique as our main source markets. Obviously, it's because of the proximity. You can tell that a lot of people are coming from South Africa, a lot of also coming from Mozambique. But there's an appreciation that we see with the numbers that are coming from other places in Africa, particularly in Southern Africa, which we really appreciate. I think we do acknowledge that we will see such numbers coming from the region to see what we are actually all about as Eswatini. And it excites us as a country as well, because it does also say we do need to try and dig a little bit more in terms of what exactly they like about our country, so that we can attract even more people coming from the region. Particularly, you have made a mention of Botswana or Lesotho.
Yeah.
We appreciate the numbers coming from there, and we would want to dig deep into what exactly those that are coming from those countries are coming here to do, so that we can attract even more, particularly coming from the region. I think the one other thing that I would love to highlight there is that if you look at how we are supposed to be doing the work that we do, whilst we appreciate that we would want to attract people coming from other countries abroad, we always want to encourage people coming from the region, especially because there is no much restrictions in terms of them needing visas to come into the country. So those are the ones that we would call probably our long-hanging fruits. We can easily attract people from those countries because there is no much restrictions in that in terms of them coming into the country.
Yeah. I want to get into the global trends and setbacks, because while the numbers from Australia and the Americans are also promising, arrivals from the Eurozone have seen a decline, with some key markets like the United Kingdom, the Netherlands posting notable drops here. How is Eswatini tourism addressing these fluctuations, especially in the face of global economic uncertainty and events like the Paris Olympics?
I think the reality is that if you look at it in terms of these numbers around this time, you will possibly see a little bit of a decline, but you will appreciate that as we go through the year, towards the peak of our season, we will see a lot of numbers coming from Europe, and it's because the climate, obviously, the weather this side of the world during that period, or going forward up to November, you will notice that the climate is more conducive, and or the temperatures are more conducive. The weather is more conducive, and during this period, we do expect that the numbers should actually increase, particularly from the Eurozone, like you're saying. But obviously, issues of economics and issues of spend, the money that they are willing to spend, is also a big factor in terms of affecting tourism, which is why you will see some of the numbers actually going down.
It's quite interesting. I want to understand the strategic shift to longer stays. I understand that is one of the imperatives that you have as the tourism authority. An average stay of 2.64 nights. It suggests that Eswatini perhaps is still seen as part of a multi-destination itinerary, so to speak. Now, the tourism value chain analysis advocates for a shift towards longer, more immersive stays. What concrete steps are being taken to, let's say, reposition Eswatini as a standalone destination that offers deeper and more meaningful experiences?
Yeah, very much difficult, I must say, for us to be necessarily a standalone destination. I think the reality is that we need to work together with other countries. I'll make an example. We do have an arrangement through an arrangement called the Triland, which is an arrangement we have with Mozambique. We have with South Africa, particularly the Mpumalanga region. Now, the intention of this initiative is to share our visitors, to share our tourists, so such that if we know that there are tourists that are coming from Kruger, which is in the Mpumalanga region, we know they will also come into the country at some point in time, because in the country we are promoting our cultural heritage and who we are as a Maswati, and we want them to come into the country. So yes, whilst we appreciate that we can be a standalone kind of a destination, but we do need to work with other players in the region for us to benefit from each other. I'll also make an example that a few weeks back we were having engagement with Gauteng Tourism, because we know that there's a lot of tourists that are coming through into South Africa, particularly Gauteng, and we would want to see if we can share some ideas or share the tourists in terms of, if they do visit South Africa, what is it that we can do, particularly Gauteng? What is it that we can do to get them to come to this side of the world, which is basically our country? There's also the concept of low mobility. So we need to come up with initiatives or activities that will slow mobility, that will make our tourists not to spend that short time, much as we see ourselves as a small country. But if we come up with activities that will make them come to the country to spend a little bit more time, that should be what we have to do. There's a number of things that you think of if you are thinking of your strategy. There will be things like hiking, which we know that they will actually take a little bit more time. If we develop clear hiking trails as a country, that would be, for instance, in the whole region, if we have a trail that starts up or north, and we know that they will go to different places, then that would actually mean those people that have interest in hiking, they are likely to spend a little bit more time in the country than they ordinarily would spend. And like you're saying, people, they don't just visit a country to sleep. They visit a country because they have certain interests in terms of activities that they would want to partake in. So that is part of our strategy.
I'll tell you what, Vusi, I suppose as a matter of imperative evidence to sort of validate what you are saying about the Triland initiative, one of my pastimes, I'm not going to say what it is really, but I was somewhere in Malkens some 2 months ago, met some people from the Southern Hemisphere, from Australia, and they said they were from South Africa. They had stayed there for a week and a half, and they were going to stay in Eswatini. They wanted to stay in Eswatini they had initially planned to stay for a week and a half, but they said they want to stay here for 3 weeks, then move to Mozambique. And, it was part of that excursion from South Africa, Eswatini, then Mozambique, and I suppose it's that Triland initiative that you guys have there. But to what I want to really speak on is the fact that they really enjoyed their stay here over, South Africa. And my hope is that even over Mozambique, so that they can come back again. Because when I did ask them if they would come back, they said for sure. This is a stop for them that they want to come back to again in the coming year. So I suppose you are working on really working strategies there, and strategies that we want to commend and applaud. Let's move into cultural and sustainable tourism. I see that you attributed on the release that you put out, our cultural event, particularly Umhlanga, and sporting events like the King's Cup Golf Tournament are integral to what we can call maybe Eswatini's tourism narrative. How is the country then ensuring these attractions not only they don't only draw visitors, but also promote sustainable and community-based tourism in line with the kingdom's long-term vision?
Yeah, I think that is you are spot on there. That's very critical. It's part of the discussions that we are having on the table to see how, because I think the reality of the matter is that if you're looking at the type of tourists that we have, the future tourists, sustainability as well as responsible tourism is one of the key things that tourists are going to look into when they want to visit a country in the future, which is why we want to emphasize to all of us, we want to emphasize to all of Maswati that it is critical that we treat or we put our country up in the map. I mean, if we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about responsible tourism, we do want to talk about the fact that, first of all, there's basic things like cleanliness of a country. It is very important that whatever that we are doing, we are not finding ourselves in a situation where we are polluting the country, for instance, in terms of doing whatever that we are doing. Because the reality is that a tourist would want to visit a country that is very clean, a country that is very safe. Yeah. Now, that then also speaks to the structures that we are actually developing in the country, in which are supposed to be developed in line with the responsible tourism approach, where we know, for instance, that we are talking about ensuring that whenever we are going to be using power, what kind of power are we going to be using? Are we going to be using solar energy, for instance, in our different facilities or establishments? How are we ensuring that we're conserving water whenever we are doing that, whatever that we are doing in our different facilities? So this is part of the strategy that we believe that we will be tabling at some point in time to cabinet in terms of ensuring that we embrace these principles in the work that we do as a country from a tourism perspective.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Perhaps before I let you go, you note a 14% increase in visitor arrivals. This is when you look at the first 9 months of the year. What should we look out for heading into the next year? Absolutely, we have, discussed some of the strategies that you have in making sure that you make it even more sustainable. But 14% increase is not child's play, particularly in the first, 9 months of the year. One would assume that people travel towards the end of the year, and my guess would be now, as we are in the fourth quarter of the year, people are making plans to make even more travels and excursions. But you've made quite the significant boost at the very start of the year. How do we interpret that?
We do anticipate that because, like I said earlier, Mr. Numalo, our numbers are expected to increase going up to October, November, December, because that is basically where we are expecting that spring is actually getting even better, and then we're moving into summer. And that is when we are expecting numbers, particularly coming from Europe. We're expecting more people to come from Europe to visit our country. So we do anticipate that our numbers are going to go up. But obviously, when the year starts, particularly the calendar year, you will expect that the numbers are not really going to be that high, which means we do need to then find some means to promote particularly domestic tourism. That is when we want to actually promote a lot of that, so that we do see a number of Maswati visiting our different establishments or our different places, which also counts as part of the numbers from a tourism perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely. Vusi Norman Dlamini, the Chief Executive of Eswatini Tourism Authority. Thank you so much for your time, Vusi. Go ahead and have a good afternoon there. Speaking on the visitor surge that we have seen, a 13% increase when compared to the figures that we had last year. Really, really impressive numbers. We hope that it's going to improve in leaps and bounds as the years go by. Let's go for a net break. We'll wrap up the show shortly by looking at our market analysis with Sandiswa Dlamini. He's a treasury dealer from Nedbank.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for tuning in. We are now on our final segment this afternoon, which is the financial segment. We want to take a look at today's financial markets with Treasury Dealer from Nedbank Eswatini, Sandiswa Dlamini. Sandiswa, good afternoon and welcome to the program. What's happening in the currencies today? I saw that the rand appreciated further today, actually the lowest since February. What does this mean?
Good afternoon, Lulu, and good afternoon to your viewers at home. As you have rightfully said, the rand have continued to appreciate against all major currencies. So currently, we are trading at 17.2100 in the US dollar, which is the best rate for importers since last year in February. So this just means that importers can now be able to import goods, especially specifically from the US, at sort of a cheaper price considering the FX movements. So in the euro, in Europe and the GBP, we have also seen appreciation, but it's not as significant as in the US. So euro SZL is 19.2405, GBP is at 23.0048. So these movements have been mostly coming from the fact that last week we've seen the Fed cut interest rate by 50 basis points, SA cut by 25 basis points, and Swaziland followed with another 25 basis points. So currently, what's happening is that in the US, since they had a bigger cut than the other markets, we are seeing that the US dollar is currently depreciating. So under normal circumstances, the US dollar is a safe haven in terms of currencies. So the fact that now interest rates are lower, now investors and traders are moving to other investments other than just holding the dollar.
Yeah, interest rates are lower, inflation is down. Is the economy doing well? What is the analysis?
So the indication in SA is that the economy is currently stable and doing well. We have seen the president of SA go to the US to try to persuade business owners and investors to come and invest into the economy. And over the past couple of weeks, we have also seen that there is no load shedding, which is a good boost for businesses, as it was a big hindrance in the previous months. So, and inflation have been quite low. It's not the lowest, but it's at 4.1, which is quite good, and it brings confidence in terms of the interest rate cuts that may come in the future.
Okay, so let's go through the what's happening in international markets. You know, China announced their monetary policy yesterday. Briefly unpack it for us. What does it mean?
So China yesterday, like other central banks, have announced their monetary policy for the country. But for China, it was a bit different because they came up with a package because they're trying to boost their economy, which wasn't doing well, and they're also trying to boost the outlook in terms of growth. Yeah. So in their policy, what happened is that they announced that there would be a repo cut, but this was expected as it has been happening with other major economies. They also announced that there is going to be a reserve requirement ratio cut, which was a bit surprising. We didn't expect that. This means that there is going to be a bit more liquidity in China in terms of these banks, because the reserve requirement ratio is what ensures that banks hold enough reserve cash that they don't use in case of whatever event can happen in the future, so that the clients and consumers are able to trust the banks to be able to withdraw their deposit later on. So they have cut that, and they have also cut the mortgage rate, which will help the consumers in China in terms of easing that load in terms of paying for their homes. They're also trying to boost consumer lending and, in fact, lending to corporates. So they are trying to make sure that the economy, the banks, they're able to lend out to whoever needs money. And on top of that, they also provided funding for the banks. So the banks in China now can rely on the government for funding. So this package, it's very in-depth, and there's a lot that's in it. And that's why we have seen it affect a lot in European markets, the US markets.
So companies are benefiting from the policy. What effects does it have on companies' price of gold and price of Brent crude oil?
So specifically gold have benefited from these announcements because in fact, all mineral companies, which are mining companies, have benefited from this because it will provide an ease to them. So gold have moved to 2,656.42, which is, in recent days, we have seen gold reach all-time highs since last week. So this is also an all-time high price of gold. Okay. They benefited from the China policy. Brent crude is at 75.06, but in this case, where the price of crude have been affected by the fact of the heightening tensions in the Middle East, where Lebanon and Israel seem to be getting closer and closer to an all-out war, which might involve other countries. So that's why the price of crude oil have went up, and there's also reduced stockpiles of the crude oil in the US, which was higher in days prior. So currently, the reserves of oil in the US are currently lower.
Okay, just quickly, less than 30 seconds, S&P 500 and the FTSE 100.
So the S&P 500 is currently at 5,732.93. The indices in terms of equity, they all benefited from China. So the effects from these announcements have been seen throughout equities. So they are all up today. The FTSE is up 8,282.76, and the JSE all share is at 84,777.53. In terms of the JSE all share, it's also benefiting from the rand just doing well in the currencies. So they also benefit from that, and then the China announcement.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sandisa, for that analysis for today's financial markets. It's a minute before 3 o'clock. We've come to the end of Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for tuning in again this week. We'll see you definitely next week at exactly 2 p.m. Do watch this program on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Have a lovely day.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.